All right, that should be showing up well on all ends. All right, this should fix it. I'm not going to start again. We're just going to go right into it. Is it working? Okay. So our basic premise is how to conduct yourself at a conference and what a conference culture kind of looks like. But this is a very vague kind of statement because conferences in forestry, natural resources, and fish and wildlife, which will be our main focuses today, can vary differently in terms of who is attending, the topics to address, and overall atmosphere of the event. So the one that we are planning to go to, the OSAF and Oregon Fish and Wildlife Joint Conference, has always had a very mixed kind of attendance. You have a lot of student chapters attending, regional chapters, and you have senior members attending who have been in the professions for a very long time. So you get this very large mix of people coming through, all different backgrounds, all different points of life. But that is not always the case, especially if you go to conferences that may not always have student attendees. You might be held to different expectations to the ones that do expect students to attend regularly. But you will need a few things in order to be what I call successful at a conference. And successful is a very broad term. First off, dress to impress. You'll need some business and business casual attire. We'll go into these two terms and how they are different. You will need a folder because, like it or not, you will have papers. You will have sewing papers. You don't know what to do with them. And I have regretted not bringing a folder every time that I've not brought one. And of course, confidence. Confidence is key. We'll go over imposter syndrome and how to build yourself up to talk to professionals that you may feel are a little above you. What you won't need, and I promise you won't need these as long as you stay on track: resume, CV, or cover letters, a laptop, any kind of self-doubt and negativity. But do check ahead to make sure that if you are going to some kind of special workshop that requires you to bring some kind of electronic device or personal papers like a resume, that you do bring those ahead of time to be prepared. But what ends up happening is that people who bring these unneeded supplies don't realize that they're not really attending the conference to find a job or internship right off the bat. You will certainly find connections that will point you to the right direction, but this is ultimately going to be a waste of space, and you're going to spend too long thinking about how am I going to present my resume to this person, when in reality, the person you're talking to may not even be recruiting for their company. So a few things. I don't like saying don't do this. I like saying avoid, because it turns out at some point or another, we're going to do something that we end up regretting or looking back on and saying, I could have done better. So some do's and avoids is what I like to call them. Do, ask questions about professionals' careers. You're here to mingle with people that you've never met before, and you're going to want to know about their career trajectory. How did they get to that point? If they went to a college similar to yours or even to yours, Connected with Alumni has been a great resource for a lot of students getting into their own fields. It helps inspire you to create your own path. Make your purpose for being there apparent. You don't want to go to a conference and be kind of aimless in what you're trying to do there. You're going there as a student representing your college, and you should have a motive in mind. Some people, or a lot of people, this is going to be finding internships and future job opportunities. But a lot of people already have those kind of trajectories set for them. They already know what they're going to do, or they have an opportunity placed in line. So they're really going to be there to find connections or even meet up with older friends. Meet with multiple people. Aim to talk with anyone you're seated, standing near, or in the general vicinity in. And I'll talk more about how seating arrangements can definitely impact your ability to talk with other people in your field or even beyond your field. But you're going to want to talk to as many people as possible, because this is a very rare occurrence where you're in this kind of equal playing field with professionals and students. Having an open mind and having constructive conversations. Now, yes, politics is going to always be a part of our work field, It dictates what we are able to do, able not to do. But it's important to realize that you are in a professional environment and that you should keep conversations as constructive as possible and to avoid personal opinions on certain subjects. And of course, above all, be respectful and engaging. You don't want to be kind of sitting in the corner, and you don't want to be putting other people down. So it's best to make yourself stand out as much as possible by being this very welcoming kind of persona. So that way you actually are remembered in people's mind when they leave. And going over to avoids, assuming that anyone or everyone attending is a recruiter or hiring. I have seen this mistake a couple of times before. I've made this mistake myself, where I thought people who were manning booths or vendors were actually hiring for positions. Turns out that's not going to be the case. And if it is, they are going to tell you to apply online. If this was a career fair, definitely bring your resume, bring your cover letters if possible, your references, because those are events where employers are coming to you directly, to hire you, to interview you. But it is very unlikely that you're going to get an interview set up just by going to a conference and meeting someone you're going to talk to for about, I don't know, maybe 5 to even an hour a minute. So just be courteous, realize that a lot of these people are representing their companies as employees, not always as a recruiter. Going on tangents about yours, other people's personal lives, basic rule, no gossiping, leave the personal arguments in life aside. This is a professional environment. You will meet people that you have met before, either other students or just professionals in your field. If you don't get along with someone, great. There are hundreds of more people to talk to. Choose wisely. Shutting down the conversation if you are speaking to someone outside of your field. If you find yourself in a situation where you realize oh, I'm the only person in this group of people who is not even remotely interested in this line of work. Don't shut yourself out and don't just leave the group unattended if you are actively in a conversation. It's rather rude, and you'll find out that talking to people outside your field is very beneficial, and it gives you a more broader understanding of what these fields can look like, and can even encourage you to actually look outside of your own scope.
Here's the wizard.
Okay. All right. As I said before, inciting arguments or talking down other people's opinions. Remember, keep this respectful. You're in a professional environment and represent your college. Your actions will reflect upon you and your college. And of course, crude, inappropriate language, leave it at home. We don't care what you are doing outside your professional field, but again, you are students and you want to represent the best of yourself. If it sounds like I'm repeating myself, it is, but I really want to get this into people's heads that this is going to be a place where you want to be remembered as a good student representing your school. So what is a professional conversation? It's another vague term, and it doesn't always sound like it actually means anything, but there's a pretty simple format that I like to use, and it's just breaking it down in 3 to 4 steps. You start with an elevator pitch, which is a short introduction about yourself and why you're at that conference. You make your purpose for being there apparent, and sometimes the person you're talking to will be able to help you achieve your goals, and sometimes they won't know what to do. That's fine. So what happens when you talk to people? You take a risk and you answer it. Ask about what their professional is, how they got into their field, and what they do for their occupation. You want to, I'm sorry, is someone speaking? Okay, just want to make sure. You want to make sure that you're not just focusing on yourself, you're learning about other people, and having just respectful, mutual conversation where both of you are learning something about the other. But when you do talk about yourself, you want to make yourself stand out. So talk about your academic and professional interests, any accomplishments you've done, if you've been involved in research, especially if you have been involved in research concerning certain fields such as wildlife, forestry, and natural resources, since many of the people attending these conferences will share similar experiences and work that you've done. And if you haven't done work like that, it's all right. A lot of people who attend these conferences are freshmen or very new in their studies, or haven't done much in research, and that's fine. But this is just a way for people to remember you by. And if you don't have any experience, if you want to talk about what you want to do after college, it's another great way of setting yourself apart, because that is actually a way for professionals to connect with you more, especially if you're graduating soon. They can line you up to something or connect with you directly from the employer. So a little more about networking. I know I'm going to say this word a lot, but I promise it is a very important tool to have, not just within this profession, but with any part of life. And unfortunately, foresters are known to be one of the worst communicators I've ever seen in a professional setting. It's a little silly, and it's becoming a running joke, but it is up to us to be a little better than the people before at it. I want you to challenge yourself to venture beyond your familiar peers and connections. And that may sound scary, but stepping outside your comfort box is a very crucial element of, well, becoming a professional yourself and becoming an independent person in your field. Creating an elevator pitch, as I said before, is going to help you tremendously in setting yourself apart in just a very short amount of time. In a couple of weeks, we are actually going to be having another seminar just on how to make yourself stand out in 60 seconds or less. I really encourage you guys attending. But I will say that just by talking alone to professionals in different fields, you're going to find opportunities that you will never find here on campus or in the classroom. In fact, 3 of our attendees from the Oregon SAF conference last year got jobs and internships just by talking to other people. Didn't come with a resume, didn't come actively looking to ask someone if they had a job availability. They were just talking to professionals, realized that they had similarities, and that person was also knowing about job opportunities in their field. And now they have more under their belt than they would have if they didn't attend. For the past 2 years now, SAF at OSU has done a seating guideline for students. And this has been incredibly beneficial for our student members to make sure that they're not staying in their little box of comfort and to branch out more. And what we do is that we seat no more than 1 to 2 students per table. And the goal is to be the only student seated at your table. And you might be asking, why am I talking so much about tables? Trust me, you'll be sitting down in tables almost the entire conference. You'll be sitting and walking. That's about as much as there is. In fact, Tatiana talks later, there will be an early career event at the upcoming OSF conference, which is where it's a World Cafe style, where you just rotate tables around with different professionals in your fields or outside your field to talk as much as you can with different people. So if you're seated with a fellow student, please focus on talking more with professionals than your peers. Again, step outside the comfort box and do not try to just isolate yourself and your other peers, because chances are your peers are there as well to talk with professionals and not just the people who they go to college with. If you don't find a connection at the table you're sitting at, which happens quite a lot, it's all right to move around different tables during your transitional breaks or periods in order to find someone new. I've done it myself. I probably switched 2 to 3 tables every time I've gone to a conference because I just wasn't hitting it off with the right professionals. We weren't in similar fields, or it was just hard talking to someone. It happens. Not everyone's going to click, and it's good to accept that and move on rather than just isolate yourself in somewhere you don't want to be. But like I said, 2 weeks we'll be talking about how to craft that perfect pitch. So I'll really be going more into that pitch in the next 2 weeks. Yes.
Just to add to, we kind of did that 1 student thing, and for a while, if everyone feels like, oh, we're doing this because the professionals are urging us to do it. So particularly one guy, Steve Pilkerton, because the students don't want to talk to anybody else, and then that kind of makes it be like professionals want to talk to everybody. The professionals are terrible at getting themselves to talk to students. They're just as bad as students are sometimes at breaking through and communicating with one another. So I like to think about it as we are actually forcing professionals to talk to us rather than the other way around, because they also want to stay in their own little bubbles and their own little companies. It's just like very common conference practice. So yeah, it's really, really good to force them to talk to you.
Absolutely agree. And I have seen that many times where professionals themselves will congregate in their little groups of friends that they've known for years. And as a student, it can be a little intimidating to enter these groups or huddles, but it does reflect very kindly back on you to show that you as a student are willing to make that initiative and broach these kind of conversations. Absolutely. So, diverting focus a little on what to wear. And I have 4 rules on what to wear to a professional conference. Well, rule 0 is the theme is business and business casual, not business formal. I promise if you show up in business formal, 3-piece suit and a tie, you're gonna get looked at. The only people who should be wearing these kind of suits are like lead members of the board of the conference you're showing at, trust holders, not students. 4 rules. Number 1, is it comfortable? Number 2, does it fit? Number 3, is it worn? And number 4, is it appropriate? Notice how I'm not going to say wear black slacks and a blazer. Wear a tie. I'm not going to say that at all. No, what you wear is up to you. And it is 2025. You can wear whatever you want, but make sure that it fits the environment. So, as I said before, you're going to be moving around a lot because these are some things that you will do at a conference. You are walking a lot. You're talking, standing and sitting. You're eating. You're more walking. And occasionally, if the conference has a field trip opportunity, you will be going outside the conference premises, potentially to a more remote area where you'll have a field tour. And you'll also be having these casual dinners and activities outside of the conference setting. So what you want to do is that you need to be prepared for all of these activities in just the most appropriate way that you can do. I have a few examples of what we looked like as a SAF at OSU at the last couple conferences. So this here, and I'll try not to step away from the mic too much, is a picture from the national conference. We have members from SAF at OSU, along with the Chief Forester of the Forest Service. As you can see here, we have a large range of what people wear. We have people wearing sneakers, hiking boots, anything from business casual to actual casual. But the thing about being in a forestry kind of environment is that these mix of professionalism is a very gray area. You will not find like a whole array of people wearing suits, but you might find a whole array of people wearing waders. It depends, because a lot of people are coming straight from work, or they're there to really mingle as a professional. So don't feel bad if you stand out a little because you feel like you're more casual, or if you're more professional. What I'm wearing now is definitely on the more professional side of what a student wears at a conference. And you will not find a whole lot of people who will wear a nice dress shirt, dress pants. I'm not wearing dress shoes, I'm wearing my work shoes. But this is something that I will be wearing to a conference to dress and impress and set myself out. But yeah, as you see here, these students are dressed to be an active participant at these conferences, but also being appropriate. So while you might see something like a graphic tee, these are graphic tees that are associated with forestry or SAF. These shirts we were forced to wear when volunteering, so I could not find many pictures where we were in a diverse kind of setting, but it's a very strange environment to be in, especially if you're used to conferences or professional settings where if you're there, you're dressed like you're at an interview. You're not at an interview. No one's interviewing you. You're there as a student and as a casual member of whatever organization this is a part of. I will say, though, that there are a couple of exceptions. Please, like I said, if your shoes are worn or have shown signs of dirt, mud, general uncleanliness. Make sure your outfit's clean. It looks presentable. It looks like it's been washed. Rule number 2, please don't wear sandals. Please don't. Any open-toed shoe is generally, it'll be noticed, especially by older professionals who are used to a more traditional environment. But if you have a medical excuse, then feel free to do whatever you wish. This is another picture of non-student attendees at an OSAF conference. And you'll see, if you can, that a lot of these people are just wearing dress shirts or button-ups of slacks and jeans. It's totally fine to be that casual, and it's very acceptable that anyone of any status, whether it be a student or a senior member, to dress how they see is comfortable in that kind of setting. You will see, though, people, I'll go back, who are dressed in very fine suits and feel like they stand out more. That is because they are trying to stand out more. These are people who are recognized by a lot of people at that organization level. And I'm not going to say you shouldn't strive to be like them, but realize that they're setting themselves apart because they are a very influential person in that kind of community setting. And to just be aware of that differences. So I'll go a little bit into fighting imposter syndrome because it's a very common thing that all students will experience. So what is imposter syndrome? Well, you might find yourself asking or even telling yourself, I'm not accomplished as my peers. This person wasn't interested in talking with me. I'm not smart enough to know what they're talking about. I feel out of place. This is normal. Everyone feels this. Students and professionals, it's a very common trend to happen. It's a reason why foresters are so bad at communicating half the time. But you are here to find a connection in a professional setting. And that is what you should be telling yourself, is that you are here for a reason. Your chapter or your organization is sponsoring you, encouraging you, training you to go to these events and set yourself forth. And so the key to fighting this syndrome is, of course, confidence, because there's never really a straightforward answer. And the best way to kind of navigate around that is sometimes it's going to be fake it till you make it. It's just the reality. But it's great to have a friend or a fellow peer to introduce you to other people to help create that stage for you to go off of, especially if that peer is a professional or a professor. Flexing your accomplishments and what your plans are for the future will make you stand out. I promise. I know I've repeated myself a few times, but professionals like it when you know you have a definite track in mind. And also just showing an interest in learning more about fellow peers and professionals if you are struggling to talk about yourself will also set you apart because it shows that you want to be engaged in this community. You want to talk to other people, even if you don't want to really talk about yourself. This is a hard one to talk about, not gonna lie, but I call it the after hours culture, where many students will stick around after the conference is done for the day, or even after it's completely done, and to have a good time with peers and join up with other attendees. Feel free to enjoy this break from the professional environments, but do keep in mind that this is still an integral part of the networking experience of conferences. So what happens is that a lot of people will go out to bars, restaurants, out of town. Happens every night you go to a conference, and it's actually a very good way to mingle with people in a less restrained area, I'll call it. But again, I don't like saying the word don't. But I will say some considerations to take into is that you should avoid excessive drinking, reckless activities, or anything that would inhibit your performance the next day. Because remember, your actions reflect upon you, not as just a student, but as the organization that you are representing in your college. So we've always been known here at OSU to be a very involved student chapter. And so we hold our students to a higher standard than we would here at college when we are away at these conferences to show that we are a professional chapter that trains its students well to engage in these environments. You may not see this kind of high expectations placed upon professionals, especially professionals who are very well known within their fields. You will see a lot of them just having fun as friends, and it will be very tempting to join in and feel like this behavior is kind of like the standard. And the reality is that you want to hold yourself to a higher level than what you would here at OSU or any college. Does anyone have any questions about that? I know it's a very weird subject to broach, and it's one of the more unspoken parts of going to these events. Right. All right. All good. So I want to point out some resources for students here at OSU, because I know I'm telling you guys, dress nicely, just this, do this, do this. There are options and resources available. Here at the College of Forestry, we have a free clothing library, but you probably heard of it by now, but they provide professional clothing and outdoor activity. Benny's Business Closet is for any major here at OSU. Milam 027. I personally get a lot of my stuff from thrift stores. I especially like Ross. This whole outfit that's thrifted, probably under 20 bucks. It's a good deal for me. OSU Career Center and the College of Forestry's career resources can really help you if you're trying to find that struggle in how do I present myself to a fellow professional, and what should I expect more if I talk to someone in this kind of field, and how to broach the, are you looking for internships in your company? But yeah, it's a weird environment to navigate, especially in the realms of forestry, natural resources, and fish and wildlife. You're gonna find, based on the size and kind of like if it's regional or national level conferences, there's going to be a very large spectrum of expectations placed upon you. And the best way to navigate that is to just be flexible and rely on the support of your peers who have gone to these conferences before, so that way you know how to prepare yourself. And that is my last slide, but I would encourage anyone to ask any questions. Oh, thank you. And whatnot.
You ate that.
And definitely come to the next seminar.
Yes.
As Daiz mentioned earlier, there will be an early career networking event between students and professionals and anyone else who has to join. And Jay Sean and I will actually be emceeing that together.
Conference.
Yes, at the conference. And having your elevator pitch skills for that are really helpful, because the rounds are going to be relatively short. So you want to be able to make sure that your voice is heard in a concise, quick way, so you don't take up other people's time, but that also so that you can make sure that what you want to project to the professionals, and maybe even to other students that may have, awareness of grad student labs or anything like that, know who you are and what your interests are.
Yes. It will be less of a seminar and more of a workshop. So we'll have some more hands-on activities, so that way I'm not just talking at you guys. But I really encourage spreading the word around. We'll be advertising as much as we can. But yeah, this is my wrap up for this seminar. If anyone has any questions at all, it's a perfect time. I've gone to free, at least, different forestry and natural resources conferences by now. I've made a lot of mistakes, I will say that, because I was very new at these conferences, didn't really know how to navigate them. But over time, I've really become familiar, and I'm looking ahead to the next 2 conferences that I'll be part of.
I wanted to just say one thing. Well, you shouldn't bring your resume or CV. If you wanted to really impress professionals, make business cards.
Yeah.
That is one way to impress the socks off of some professionals, since not everyone, even professionals, might not even have cards, like business cards. And I made my business cards at 2 in the morning once because I was bored. And like I had people tell me that they were really impressed and shocked that I had business cards as like an undergrad. So that's a great way to get your name in someone's head as someone to remember.
What you use to make the cards?
I made them on Vistaprint and I got 100 of them for $30. And you can custom make them. I made mine on recyclable paper. But you can also, if you want to go like the less quantity and a little bit cheaper, you can go to Office Max and you can get business cards made 50 for like $15. So about half as much for half the price.
I will say I did them through OSU so that I could have the OSU colors. I think if you search up like OSU print jobs, you can do that. It was pretty cheap too. And then it looked kind of more official to the OSU side of things, which was nice.
Yes.
And even if you don't have a business card, even just exchanging your contact information with people that you connect with can really help you in the long run. This upcoming conference will have a mentorship program that you would have signed up already for, but it's always just a good idea to take away from these experiences that these are people you're going to be working with in the future. It's a pretty oddly tight-knit community, forestry, natural resources, and wildlife, where you will run into the same people that you meet or have met 5 years ago. So you never know who you'll meet again. That's what I'll say. All right.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm glad to have put this on in conjunction